Welcome to Tales from the Teak, a show dedicated to fine craftsmen everywhere. In a world where everything is now, we're going to explore then. Each vessel you see on this show was built by hand, and they all have a very different story to tell. We'll explore the history and tradecraft of assembling wooden boats and the men who sail, row, or paddle them around the world. In this episode, we bring home a treasure from Clearwater. We talk to a man who finally got his canoe. And we do a lot of restoration work on some very historical vessels. So slow down and remember a time when we built things that last, built them by hand, and built them with passion. Because a boat builder needs passion and patience. But when the work is done, you can stand back and say, I built that. Tales from the Teak is shot at Fish Boat Works in Cortez, Florida, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving Florida's saltwater heritage. So let's see how to turn a wreck into a work of art. You're watching Tales from the Teak, and now let's meet our host, Captain Rick Stewart. Rick is going to introduce our first vessel, the Campesina.
This boat here, it's a Cuban boat, built in Cuba, and it had a Russian diesel in it. And it was used to escape to, apparently ended up in the Bahamas, where it basically was abandoned. And that ultimately someone found it, towed it back to Florida, and donated it to to FISH, the Florida Institute for Saltwater Heritage. It was built very crudely. It had built primarily out of bronze nails. They just basically nailed it together. And I believe that it may have had to do with a sense of desperation. At the beginning of this project here, I'm going to start with the transom so that when I do start to replank the boat, I have something permanent to attach it to. So this is obviously a good place to start. This is the one I want, right here. Let's bring this over. These edges are going to be joined together. This is all going to be joined together like this to create the new transom. Okay, this represents, these three pieces of wood are going to represent the new transom for our Cuban fishing boat Campesina. And I'm doing today a spline joint. Okay, now if you'll notice, I've taken the liberty of making all these little insert pieces. This is going to be our spline. Now where most people would just run a continuous piece in here, running the same direction, which is actually a weak joint. I take extra time and care in doing it this way. I use an end grain, okay? Notice the end grain here, okay? The reason that I'm doing this is I now place this piece into the groove I've cut, rabbited out here. Now notice the wood is running opposing each other. The spline joint itself, the actual insert piece, the grain is running this direction. Our main run is running the opposite direction. What this is going to do is give us an unbreakable joint. I'm making the spline out of the same material. This is white oak, an outstanding boat building wood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these little pieces and I'm going to glue them in like this, a two-part system. It's 2 to 1. And what I'm going to do is once I've activated the two parts, once it's mixed together, it will cure with unbelievable strength and hardness, giving our joint what we're looking for as far as many years into the future.
Up next, one of the oldest floating wood boats in North America.
Hi there, we're in lovely Clearwater, Florida. It's December 19th, and I'm here with the San Francesco. She was built originally in 1870 in Italy. The yard is still operating today. She's authentic, she is not a replica. This is the real deal. We're departing today to take the boat to Cortez, Florida, where she will come out of the water and be taken to the Fish Boat Works, of which I'm the manager. So, my intent is to give her a full restoration over 2 years with approximately $2 million. And that's my intention with this lovely vessel. I want to save her life. She's been sitting here since approximately 2008 with little to no loving and has fallen into disrepair, significant disrepair. So it's either she moves now or she doesn't move. So this is a rescue attempt here to, to get her down to Cortez and try to get her out as soon as possible, perhaps early January. On board the Francesca's aft cabin, I just wanted to point out some of the luxury accommodations for the day. Notice the button-tuck leather, the original button-tuck leather, and various gauges. I'd like to point out the outlet covers. Notice they're of the European variety. I wanted to point out this mahogany woodwork inside. Notice the thickness of the veneers. This is absolutely unheard of anymore. It's almost over 1/8 of an inch thick. Today's veneers are about a 64th at best. This exquisite butterfly hatch that opens both in this cabin over here and also on this side of the hallway, so it gives light into both the guest cabin and the hallway. This woodwork is absolutely spectacular. Heavily mildewed, but nonetheless it can be cleaned up beautifully. This can be saved. This is very typical of a head. As far as allowing ventilation and drainage while taking a shower. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be in here to see real wood joinery. They talk about real wood today, it's all particle board. I truly have found a diamond in the rough, a real treasure. We're very anxious to see what awaits underneath this mast. It could be a rear doubloon it has not been pulled in approximately 8 years, so we're anxious to see what's there. Me fine saucy wenches. As you can see there on the port bow, just below the water line, a square piece of plywood about a 1/2 inch thick, and we coated it with 5200 marine adhesive, and then we actually screwed it into the hull. And immediately the leaks ceased. She was pumping about 3 gallons a minute.
Now that she's all patched up, our towboat, captained by Johnny Banyas, arrives in the Boss Lady. Imagine. It is the year 1870. At the Italian shipyard Cantiere Argentario, a schooner is completed. It is named after a saint, San Francesco, patron of the sailors. Originally, the ship was designed for transporting marble, but history had something else in store for her. When the steamboat was introduced, she could no longer keep up with her competitors. She was taken out of service after years of loyal duty and fell into the hands of people who believed in free enterprises. In contradiction to her holy name, she now spent her days on dubious voyages across the Mediterranean Sea. With her innocent look, perfect line, and enough space for goods, such as ivory, art, wine, business flourished. As with all good things, this period of free enterprise voyages came to an end. The ship was confiscated and bounded. She was doomed to be lost to history. But in 1965, San Francesco's beauty was recognized by a wealthy Italian family, put back to life as a modern, comfortable sailing yacht. She became again the queen of the Mediterranean Sea. Although luxurious, she remained the authentic ship she has always been.
to get past that pile.
Yeah, I know.
The trip was flawless. The bay was like glass all day. It was awesome. It was awesome. Outstanding. Right here, Bill.
And now let's check out the Ana Mendez.
This beautiful vessel is the Ana Mendez, the Hernando de Soto longboat. This is used here, this lives up at the De Soto Memorial in Bradenton, and it's used in the annual reenactment of the landing of Hernando de Soto here in Bradenton. She is approximately 26 feet long, 25 and some change, lap strake hull, basically built off plywood. It's all adorned with Spanish cedar and mahogany. She's here to get an oil, lube, and filter, as I say, but this is going to get a complete paint job. I'm stripping down all of the existing finish, which is primarily different forms of latex paint, house paint, and I'm replacing it with marine paint and varnish. This ends up going to be a tan color, and this will be a blue, which is historically accurate for this particular boat. This is a circa approximately 1539. When I'm doing any kind of refinishing or varnish work such as this here, it's extremely important to use a sanding block. It seems ridiculous to do that, but I want to show you something. If you go back and forth with this sandpaper, this fine sandpaper, and use a sanding block, it will keep the finish very flat, and down the road, you'll be glad you did. Here I'd like to demonstrate just how beautiful this wood is. This is Spanish cedar, and we're just going to apply a thin coat of varnish on there. Again, varnish not only makes it beautiful, but also offers UV protection for the wood. It's kind of a dual purpose thing. But between you and me, I like the beauty of the wood. And now I'm going to put a little bit of the top coat. This is going to be the color that it will end up being originally. I mean, this is what it was originally. Now we're going to recoat it here. We're going to build up about 3 coats of this, and it'll be smooth as glass. And I'm using Interlux Bright Side today on this boat, on the Ana Mendez. And I've been using this product for a very long time. It works good for me, it's very easy to apply, and it has outstanding results.
Next up, we go for a ride in the Sally Adams.
I'd like to introduce the Sally Adams. This is one of Fish's fleet, one of our babies, is one of our celebrities. She was built here at the Boat Works, and this is a North Carolina boat. It's called a spritzel skiff. All right, and I just wanted to show around. We're gonna take it down to the water, and I'm gonna rig her up, and we're gonna go for a little sail. I'm Rick Stewart, and these are my tales of the Teak.
The next wood boat we see is a dream come true, finally, for Doug Kaufman.
My dad and I bought this. We thought it would be a good idea to buy it. We bought it about 13 years ago. One thing led to another. It sat in my garage for about 12 years in pieces. About a year ago, I was introduced to Rick Stewart, who runs the shop, and we kind of came together and figured out that we could set it up in the shop and build it. And so for the last 13 months or so, I've been spending every waking moment and day off putting this thing together, and so far so good.
It's floating.
It is floating, and the water's on the outside of the boat, which is a good thing. It's kind of what we were going for. This is called a Winisk, W-I-N-I-S-K 17. It's actually 17 and a half feet long. The decks, I don't know if you can see them from the camera sitting, but they're much larger than the ones that came with it. And we've inlaid some woods in them and stuff. And the rails, the cap rails, are all custom done. The bulkhead's 4.5 we put in to give the boat a little extra buoyancy and maybe some dry storage. And then put a keel underneath it that didn't come with it. We had to set the keel on there, so it's got about a 3/4 of an inch deep keel that runs the length of it that we were hoping would help it track better, and it actually seems to be tracking really well. So maybe that was something we thought of and worked pretty well.
Yeah, man. How'd it go out there? How did that keel aid in the tracking of the boat?
It definitely tracks better with two people in it than one. One, it still sails on you quite a bit, so it's going to be a two-person canoe. It's not really
or you could load some coolers and
yeah, it needs some kind of ballast from the front. Other than that, it was very easy to paddle, and
it's what I would call a highly modified from the original kit, which was to weigh approximately 52 pounds. This one weighs in at probably about 85 to 90 pounds.
Yeah, it's still easy to carry, though.
Yeah, and due to the fact that I've got all sorts of extra cherry work, and we still have quite a bit to do on her, but today she was ready for her maiden voyage.
Now Rick is going to fill you in on how to fill a hole.
Here we are with a bung. And I call this a bung, or it's a wood plug. Okay. This is a 3/8. This is pretty much the industry standard. This piece of mahogany, the frames on the Capacina are mahogany, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this up in here. I'm going to turn on our drill press. In here I have a fuller bung cutter that makes these plugs, that actually cuts the plug out. I just simply, very slowly go down into the wood, pull it back, there you go. This is also 3/8. This will make an exact hole. Once the bung is in the hole, okay, I take a minute and I line up the grain. I make sure the grain is in alignment. You'll notice here in the frames, you'll see these holes, and you can still see some of the green from the bronze from the nails that were in there. Now, when I go to put a new plank on here, I don't want to have these holes remain. So what I'll do is take my countersink and I'll blow a hole in there. I'll do 3 of them. What I'll do here is take some of our epoxy glue and we're going to put it up in the hole. Okay. And then I'll just tap them into nice and deep. And that'll force the epoxy up into the hole. Set up yesterday. Okay. So then I come across and I shave them off basically like this. Just shave them. And then and after a little sanding there, you can see it looks good as new. See the epoxy? It makes it stronger than steel. So I now have basically a fresh piece of wood in order in which to attach my new plank.
We have one more project on the Campesina. Well, for this show, putting the planks back on her hull.
I just placed this, the new plank in here just to give you a rough idea of what I'm up against. This is the first of 48 planks. Okay, now here's the original, which basically, as you can see, it sat up in there. And this is still very crude and very rough, but each rib will get is the attachment point for the new plank. Putting some very thinned enamel on here after we've repaired our holes with an epoxy glue on the bungs because we want this to be permanent. This has been drying now for a couple of days. It's fully screwed in and bunged, and this will allow me to bend the plank. We have a 2-inch number 8 bronze screw, slotted, very traditional. Unlike the nails that the boat was originally built with, the screw obviously has holding potential. This is a little trick when putting a screw into wood. Typically it's very tight and it's difficult. So to make that easier, I use a block of beeswax and I drag it along the screw and I fill up the screw with wax. Slide it in there. You've got to keep the head lined up very carefully so you don't damage the screw. On the front end here, because we do want this plank to be removable, so we'll just use a little bit of our paint on the bung as a point of sealing it. I'm going to line up the grain. Now, if you're wondering, number one, I use the mahogany bungs into the cypress just to be able to be visibly seen, and the fact that this boat is going to be painted so you'll not see them. But you see there's a radical difference between the colors of wood. If this were going to be a varnished boat, I would use all the same wood with the same grain and everything would be you know, visibly beautiful. Here is the transom for Campesina, and notice that the end grain spline joints are in here. Okay, it's basically cut. Notice the bevel. We've got the bevels all cut now. This is extremely heavy, so I need to add one more piece to the top of the transom. This is going to go in here like this. Again, it'll have the same spline joint. Notice here this line. What this is going to do is give me a camber at the top of the transom. And the deck of the boat will sit on the top of this radius. Now I'm going to quickly cut this on the bandsaw. I actually only need 2 additional inches. But I went ahead and added almost 4 inches so that I could get this camber. You see this gentle camber, this gentle slope, sort of a radius, and we'll get this perfectly balanced. I'll spline it together, and then we'll have our finished product. Okay. This thing almost weighs as much as I do. Okay, we'll put this here, and basically this piece right here. Okay, this is the chine of the boat. Okay, this is a very critical plank, and it's going to tie in the corner here. This is the new plank right here that's also installed. It's just gray over white, but and I've just finished putting in this 7/8 cypress plank all the way down. Notice here in the center, I've got a butt joint that has a 7/8 backing plate that's through bolted with bronze bolts, 4/20s. And as I come back here now, I've replaced the transom. This is brand new, built out of, we saw it laminated on the table. Now I've added a crown to it. It's sitting where it is going to end up.
And this is where we end up. Thanks for watching Tales from the Teak.